It is 1:04 p.m. I'm calling the July 17th, 2023 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. Margaret or Chris, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Vanderwerf?
Present.
Mr. Matsuno?
Here.
Mr. Stoner? Mr. Stoner's absent. Mr. Hancock?
Here.
And Mr. Henningsen is also absent.
Thank you. Just a few announcements. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. The public may access and participate in the meeting electronically. Instructions for doing so are posted on the Albemarle County website at the Albemarle County calendar. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. All speakers, when it is your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. Applicants who are making presentations, note that your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Staff will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. If applicants in the meeting room have team members attending virtually who will need to present, please make that known when you come to the podium. Everyone who is participating virtually, please mute your microphone until it is your turn to speak. Disclosures. Do any ARB members have anything to disclose?
No.
I don't.
Thanks. Public comment. Are there any members of the public that want to make a comment about a project that is not on the agenda for review?
No, not that I see.
Thank you. Consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items today. Regular review items. There is one regular review item today. It is ARB-2023-58, Moores Creek Admin Building. Chris, are you ready with your presentation?
Yes.
Thanks.
The application I'm presenting on today is the review of architecture and site plan to construct a building addition to the RWSA admin building, in addition to associated site improvements. Project area is located within the RWSA Moores Creek treatment plant, which is north of I-64 between the Rivanna River and the Route 20 interchange. Summarize the staff report. There are minor comments on the visibility of mechanical equipment and site plan that needed to be addressed. Existing building was built prior to the establishment of the entrance corridors, but uses red brick as a primary material, which connects it to a material used historically throughout the county. The proposed building design addition also uses red brick in addition to other materials and colors to relate to those found in the existing building. One issue noted in the staff report regarding the building is the potential visual impact of the proposed roof-mounted solar panels on the entrance corridor, particularly those on the flat roof portion of the addition. Drawings that show the relationship between the panels on the flat roof and the parapet would be needed to clarify visibility of the panels. Staff recommends approval of the major amendment with the revisions listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chris. I'll ask ARB members if they have any questions for staff, starting with Taro.
No, Chris, thank you for your report. Appreciate it.
Dade?
Thank you. No questions. Thanks, Chris.
I don't have any questions either, Chris. Thank you. Do we have anyone from the applicant? Is there somebody online?
Yes, there should be a few.
Yes, good. Chris, are you ready?
We can hear you. Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if that's on my end or your. Is the audio clean?
Are you not able to hear the meeting?
I can hear you. There's an echo on my end.
Your mic is giving some feedback, but it's fine.
Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Davis. I'm a principal at Thrive Architecture in Louisville, Virginia, local architect for this project. Also on the show today is Brian Bergstrom from SEH. He's one of the principal architects. SEH also, he can also speak to the other SEH engineering disciplines. And on today also is Sam Harlow with our office and at Thrive. She's going to share the deck for us. So wanted to just touch on a few things maybe that Chris had mentioned in the staff report. Try not to repeat too much of what he said already. Sam, I think you can share. Yeah. Yeah, Chris mentioned the proximity to the highway there. Highway is at the bottom of this page. The three circles there kind of represent the some viewpoints that we've found sort of through the trees to that building. So I'll show that to you in a minute. I think those are also included in the package that we submitted. And Sam, you can click over. I think you've seen these, a couple of images. Of course, the highway is beyond the tree line behind this building here. The existing building here on the left side is the facade that's facing the highway. So fairly blank, predominantly metal panel. A little bit of brick is on that south facing side. The addition will sit where these cars are and attached to this east side of the existing building. Again, this is the side facing the highway. The one comment I would say here, we can talk about a little bit more if necessary. The mechanical that you see here, for the most part, goes away. There will be some ground mounted mechanical. We don't have a lot of fidelity on that yet based on the phase where the engineers are. There are some labs in this building and it'll have lab exhaust. We're certainly hoping to take that up internally and take that through the roof rather than have it mounted externally, but we do anticipate some ground mounted mechanical equipment that we'll do our best to screen. We can be in touch with Chris about that. And this is facing the west, not terribly visible from the EC. Yeah, so just wanted to point out a couple things. Many of you've driven it several times, I'm sure, whether you've driven it since this project kind of landed in the hopper. I'm not sure. Certainly now it's impossible to see from any point. Our analysis is you can't see the site from eastbound 64 at all. You cannot see it from westbound 64 when the leaves are out. And Sam, you can click over. There are just a few spots where if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can pick it out when the leaves are down. These were three views kind of looking from the southeast, from the south, and from the southwest. And Sam, click over one more. Yeah, so certainly this is from, these pictures just for reference are from Google Street View, and it's very hard to find a spot where you can see this much. So we kind of pulled some stop stills from that, but this is the existing condition. You go to the next spot on Google and you can't see it, so you got to find the next hole in the woods. Yeah, so just kind of straight on, looking at where we are, you can see there's just a little bit of a shadow of the existing building there on the left, and the addition would be just to the right of that, of course, closer to that existing parking lot. And this is actually a little bit past the site, looking back. It would be looking over your shoulder, kind of backwards as you're going past. Is maybe where there's the most visibility back to the building, but certainly would not be many people who would kind of see from this view. But we recognize that it is partially visible from here. And so Sam, Yeah, so Sam, maybe you could just point out where we anticipate that mechanical equipment. I think we recognize is going to be kind of a topic of further communication. And there on that north side too, is also some minor kind of deliveries for lab supplies. So that's the new kind of drive route that comes up in this south center of the existing building. Yeah, right through there. Chris did mention there's some retaining walls in the site plan to enable some of this additional parking. So you can see the retaining wall, Sam, top left of the screen is a top left. Yeah, retaining wall there. So certainly we expect to screen that with some evergreens from the entrance corridor. And you can see the photovoltaics here that Chris mentioned. On the existing building, page right, those would be mounted to the existing metal roof, would kind of follow the the seams of the existing roof. We think that is a good way to do that. Certainly, it maximizes production from an energy standpoint. On the proposed building, kind of top left there, that's on the flat roof behind the parapet. We don't think those are visible at all. And bottom of the page there on the addition, that's a low sloping roof that does tilt slightly towards the highway. That is, the panels there will be mounted kind of flush to the surface also. We think that's fairly minor. We can look at that a little bit more in the site section. Okay, click Sam. Yeah, so this is a little bit maybe easier way to get a sense about that. To orient you in that drawing at the top, far right is eastbound 64. The lower lane there is kind of westbound 64, of course, so you're a little bit higher. Sam, could you point to the low sloping roof there and the parapet? Yeah, so on that low sloping roof, some photovoltaics, we think just because they're almost at eye height, very difficult to see those. And on the flat roof, we think not visible at all. So really the only one, not represented in this section, but the only ones that you might be able to get a line of sight to if there was an opening in the trees is the ones mounted on the backside of the hip of the existing roof. And Sam, I think you can click. Yeah, I wouldn't spend a ton of time here. I think Chris did a good job in his staff report. Certainly, we're very concerned about kind of the rhythm, connection to existing materials, kind of a new roof form there on the entry side that mimics the existing overhanging hip, and trying to create a sense of scale with the rhythm and with the differing base material there. These views I think are not very visible. These are east and west facing, and Sam, you could click. Yeah, and yeah, so these you saw, I think, in the submitted material. We do have a couple of the renderings in here. If we need to refer back to them, Sam, you could click through to those, please. Yeah, so this is the side facing the entrance corridor. You can see the darker material there on the existing building on the page left. I think the metal panels here on the right side are rendering a little bit lighter, maybe than our intent. Certainly, we would expect to come back to you with some material samples as we look through that. Chris did also mention the spandrel panels here. I think you can pick out page right, the kind of mid-tone gray is where we've got opacity, and the at least when it's in shadow, the darker pieces there are the glass. Probably a little hard to say right now 100% if that's spandrel glass, as Chris said, or maybe that's another opaque material in the spandrel location. Again, I think we could talk through that and work through that with staff. And Sam, you could probably click. Yeah, so just a little bit closer view of that same thing. There is on the south side employee amenity area outside terraces. Those white things are umbrellas, if that's not 100% obvious at the scale you're looking at it. That's a little bit of our accessible parking there. Yeah, and you can go ahead, Sam. Yeah, east side, not very visible. Again, the highway is beyond the trees on the left. That's facing the opposite way, but it gives you a sense of kind of the articulation of the architecture and how that relates back to the existing building. Again, you can see the pieces of spandrel. And then we did add this. This is not in the material we submitted, but we took the line work out of the massing and the modeling and dropped it in at scale over that Google Street View and tried to just fade that out a little. It's on, I think you understand, it's beyond all the trees in this picture. But there on the left is the existing, and on the right, you just get kind of a hint or shadow of where that proposed addition is. Most of that parking, or all the parking, I guess, is in existing parking or graded areas. So we don't think that we're dropping any trees on the Ravenna site, or if we are, certainly very, very small amount to kind of get that new parking in there. And I think that's the last thing we had for you today. So happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll ask Dade, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Sure. Thank you very much for your presentation. Two questions, I guess. Appreciate the street views from 64. Can you clarify what extent of the trees that are screening the site are in the right of way and which are on the property?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most of them, maybe 2/3 of them, are in the right of way. I don't know if we have a Sam. Can you get back to the site plan? I don't think that. I apologize. We might not have the drawing to illustrate that in this deck. Sam, is it on the line drawing? No. Yeah, I mean it's through the middle of that stretch between the call it the service drive and the highway.
Thank you. And then the second question is, can you comment at all on the visual characteristics of the solar panels, their reflectivity and color?
I don't know if I can speak to that. I would just say in my mind, they haven't been specified yet. I kind of think of them as the typical or standard solar panel. So from my recollection perspective, I don't feel like there's an enormous range in the kind of color tone, that kind of deep blue gray tone maybe, and not a tremendous range in the reflectivity. I could be wrong or that, or you might have another perspective on that from projects you've seen in the past.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Taro, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your presentation. Just one quick question about the proposed landscaping around the new parking lot, or on the parking lot side, I guess between the building and 64. Are you planning to provide any plantings, I guess, on that edge of the parking towards the top of the page?
Yeah, let me see if I can annotate here. Might be easier. I would just say that this is probably the areas where we're anticipating maybe some mechanical. I don't honestly recall, I don't know if Sam or Brian do, if there's any proposed landscaping right there, because that area hasn't changed much. So we'd expect to do maybe the screening closer to that mechanical. This is the area over here, and going farther to the east on page left, where we've got some screening of the retaining wall that you see there, and the screening of the parking. And then otherwise, most of the landscaping is kind of closer in landscaping. I don't know if that speaks exactly to your question, or maybe which area you were asking about exactly, or if it's on this drawing.
Yes, I guess top left. Am I reading that right? That if there were any evergreen trees there or any canopy, large canopy trees there, they might help with some of the screening? Am I in the right general area?
Yeah, this is kind of existing canopy up here, so I think we're expecting to just have the evergreen screen at the bottom of the foot of the retaining wall. The retaining wall is not huge right here. I think 4 or 5 feet.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the other way to think about it is we wouldn't want to take down any existing tree canopy to put a shade tree or anything like that in there.
Yes, understood. Okay. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment?
No, not that I see.
Now the ARB will go into discussion. Dade, start with you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think I'd just like to compliment the design. I think the building is very nicely designed and really builds nicely on the existing materiality on the site. I think it's nicely sited and nice way to get more massing and more capacity there. I think certainly so to the solar panels, I think certainly it's wonderful to have renewable energy on site. I think our guidelines still classifies them as mechanical equipment and still require us to limit the visibility of them. I think from the sections the applicant provided, I'm satisfied that those on the new building should not be visible. I think those on the steeper sloped portion of the existing one may be. So I guess I'm interested in my fellow board members' opinions on the visibility of the panels and whether or not those might be mitigated by planting, as I think you alluded to, Frank, or how best to address those in the context of our existing guidelines.
Thank you, Dade. Tara?
Yeah, I agree with Dade. I think it's going to be one of the nicest buildings on the site. It's well done by the applicant, and yeah, I echo your thoughts on the solar panels as well. I think if there's a way to make it work, I don't think that. I think to the extent that we can minimize the effect of the guidelines on renewable energy generation here in the county, that'd be great. So we can talk about that.
Agreed. Yeah, I think to me, the focus is the panels on the existing building. But I think there's a way to screen it. I could be convinced that proposed landscaping could mitigate that effect on the corridor and screen it per our guidelines. Think we should go look at the motion perhaps, and maybe there's
Did you want to look at the landscape plan?
Sure, that would be helpful
that'd be
to
great.
consult it. Yeah.
You switch the input to the presentation input. I've flipped the page to orient it as you would be viewing the site from I-64 entrance corridor. So it's upside down, but it's corridors at the top.
And is it correct to understand that the colored trees and plants are proposed additions to the site?
Correct.
Right. And can you clarify what the proposed trees are?
They've been listed as evergreen in the species.
So it looks like the screening trees are hollies, white pine, some rhododendron shrubs. Standard screenings.
Maybe Frank, that's a question for you, just whether the height on those is going to.
I think so. I think it'd be helpful to look at that section that showed the elevation of the westbound 64 in relation to the building. I think that'd be another way to look at it. I think the American holly, I think would do well there. The eastern red cedar, maybe if it got enough sun, I don't know if that's on the north side of the existing woods, might get shaded out, but those are the types of species you would want to see, native. What is the distance plus or minus from that building to the road? Do we know? Is it dimensioned on any of the plans? Pretty good buffer of
Yeah.
existing vegetation.
Yeah.
There. It looks like maybe just over 300 feet from the existing building to the pavement of the interstate.
That's pretty substantial.
I guess, is there any buffer requirement currently established on the site?
No, I don't believe so. When we were looking at this and thinking about the visibility of the panels on the existing building and the proposed addition, we felt that the arrangement of the panels on the sloped roof of the existing building would just sort of help those just sort of blend into that angled roof, and given the amount of wooded area in between, that would really just sort of mitigate whatever might be visible.
Thank you, Margaret. Do you want to look at the motion?
What's that?
Do you want to look at the motion now, or?
Sure, and I guess to the question, is there a drawing in this package that shows the property line in relation to, or the property line at 64?
I think that might be the closest approximate. Placed correctly. Yeah. Yeah. So the property line in this looks pretty correct, and the labeling 64. I'm not sure if it's as close as it's showing in the site plan. Labels are to scale.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch
Oh,
that.
sorry. The labels I-60, I'm not sure. Staff's not certain if the labels of I-64 are kind of to scale, but the property line is a close approximation of property line based off of kind of looking at GIS.
I can share this other image with you just a second.
Thank you, that's helpful. And there's still a fair amount of vegetation on the site. It's not like it's right at the back of the parking lot. Any other questions or comments?
No, I don't think so.
Can we look at the recommended motion? Thank you. And remind me, is this for site plan, initial site plan, or is this for certificate of appropriateness for?
This is a major amendment.
Okay.
And this is obviously the first time that you're looking at this proposal. We thought, given the amount of wooded area that is adding to the or creating the limited visibility, that we were just going to recommend approval with the conditions that were listed here, not needing to come back again. Of course, if you all have concerns and want to see it again, then that would be the more standard practice.
Thank you. I mean, I think given the level of detail too in the application as far as the architecture, and I feel good about that.
I do as well.
Could I just ask, I was a little confused about the landscape plan with the screening on the retaining wall. Is it just that there are going to be small evergreen plantings at the base of the, because I thought that the landscape plan showed something that looked more substantial, but is the landscape plan reflecting what is intended to be planting the current?
I think what was proposed there was a mix of trees and shrubs.
That's correct. All right, okay, great, thank you. So is it on this mechanical equipment issue? Is it? I mean, I think we were all thinking that the equipment may be visible, but it would be mitigated by certain other factors, existing screening. So is it? I mean, I know that it's in our guidelines that these notes shall be added, but is it really going to be completely eliminated in the way that you would eliminate like a, I don't know, some piece of mechanical equipment with a parapet wall or something? That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be completely eliminated, but given the mode of travel on this particular corridor, I don't think it will be noticeable.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it either. It's just this eliminated language is a little bit.
Could change eliminated to mitigated or get rid of the sentence.
Yeah,
Which?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would look to the applicant to, specify those plantings. Right now it's just from a list. So it could, but I think once that's nailed down and studied in section and kind of how the grades relate, I think it's, up to the applicant to prove that. And I think can be done on a staff level. Like, I don't know that it needs to come back here unless they can't prove it. I'm hesitant to say, for this application, we'll say mitigated, but for every other application we've said eliminate, I want to kind of stick to our guidelines.
I would agree with that.
I understand what you're saying, like what we've seen, it's not eliminated.
yeah.
It's mitigated, but I think there's a way to kind of through either visualization or further study, I think you could prove that through plantings and the relative grade and the buffer of existing vegetation that you won't see those panels.
Okay. Seems reasonable.
I understand your concern too, because like if it were an HVAC unit or something,
Yeah.
where's the wall or where's the shrubs that we know will screen it? That makes sense. Does that give you enough, or you feel comfortable? Okay,
Yes.
working with the applicant to. All right, do we have anything we want to review or change?
I think, yeah, that seems good. Mhm.
Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll be pleased to move for approval of proposal with the conditions listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
We call the vote.
Mr. Matsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock.
Aye. Thank you. Moving to work sessions, there are no work sessions today. Other business. Do we have a motion to adopt the June 20th, 2023 ARB minutes?
So move.
Seconded.
And call the vote?
Mr. Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Mr. Matsuno,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock.
Aye. Other items? Do any board members or staff have any other items?
Yes, we, staff has another item. If you all recall, earlier this year, the board reviewed a proposal for a trading post. Oh, there we go. Trading post along Route 29 South to add BP branding. We brought this item to the board due to the design being consistent with ARB design guidelines and previous approved BP canopy designs in the county. During this review, staff noted a few canopies that had unapproved changes since the board approved their designs. We'd like your feedback on the unapproved changes so we can determine what the next steps would be. As you see and alluded to in the first slide, this is the one that was approved and during a recent drive-by survey, the canopy, the fascia of the canopy matches what was approved by the board. 1099 Ryle Road, you can see this one staff did not note any previously approved canopy design, but this design that's currently existing is design the board had determined that was not appropriate for the entrance corridor.
I'm sorry, Chris, you're saying that previous photo is an unapproved design in an EC?
It had, or no ARB application had been
Okay.
submitted, but site visit noted that it had been installed, and based off of the review of the design proposed or the original design proposed for the trading post, the board determined that this design and kind of in actuality was not appropriate for the entrance corridor. Also Route 29, look left, right, green has been added to the posts, and the fascia has also been changed to green to kind of match BP's branding color. One's Pantops, green has also been added to the support poles. One is out in Crozet, common theme, green's been added to the support poles. No other changes were observed in the site visit. And this one on a Rockfish Gap Turnpike, during this, observed during site visit matches what was approved by the board. Once again, this is the most recently approved BP canopy. Staff would like your feedback to determine is this standard to go by for BP canopies in the county.
And Chris, as I recall, part of the consideration was the sign ordinance and the number of colors allowed. Is that not correct?
For the canopies, it was the number of colors allowed, and
Yeah, I think the main issue was that the canopy guidelines say that there should be a one primary color with one possible accent color. And that was the one of the main issues for that canopy. In addition to that, the graphic illumination was another issue.
Okay, thank you.
before doing discussion, one last item that was noted in surveys, or I guess should say was not noted in most of the surveys, is the illumination of the graphic. Most, if not all, the approved plans note that the background shall be opaque. I regularly take the route through the Pantops BP, and I've noted that background is fully illuminated. So if you look left and right, the white, it's what staff's considered in the background, and white in the Helios graphic illuminates at night versus just the Helios, as you can see indicated on the right. That wasn't noted in the other surveys because they were daytime surveys, but so it's unknown if that's a condition throughout all the VPs within the county or not.
Are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Are the examples you showed at the beginning of this presentation, were they all approved? Or they all gained certificate of appropriateness? Like,
Going kind of
certificates of appropriateness?
running back through them again, and the one on the right was the most recent one that has ARB approval. This one has no previous review and was stalled without the ARB application. The one on the left is ultimately what was approved by the board over the course of time. It's the current site condition on the right. Once again, the one on the left is what's ultimately approved by the board, right? It's what's the current condition over time. And then again, this is a straight view, but that's ultimately what was approved by the board. This one's just a pretty old ARB application that we don't.
Isn't it a
scan.
question of, sorry to interrupt you. The ones that were approved, wouldn't it be a zoning violation if they've changed something from the approved? And then for those that didn't have a certificate of appropriateness that just went and made this change on their own, wouldn't we need to communicate to them that they need to apply, or that they need to gain a certificate of appropriateness before they can
That's
change
right.
anything?
That is right. We wanted to just get your input on the changes. There's sort of a big range in the changes. Just wanted your input on, perhaps, the green post or the upper portion of the green post. Maybe you don't think that's a big concern, or maybe you do. We just want to know what level of detail to take back to the code compliance officers when we move forward with getting the situation resolved.
I mean, it makes sense, as Frank said to me, that they just be requested to return them to their approved condition or to make an application for a change. Personally, I think most of the instances we've seen, the buildings like have white trim or other things, so the green is a little bit out of place. At least in this view. So I initially don't think I'd be supportive of an application that requested changing the post color to green. But I think that makes sense to me that, and then for the one that hasn't had an application, that it be submitted. Thank you for noticing this, Chris.
Now I'm convinced there's a staff member that's working undercover ARB agent. I'm just kidding. Neil's shaking his head. Think that exists.
Is there general agreement with Dave's comment?
Tara?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I some of them, I mean, the green on its, you could maybe consider it a primary color, but I do think that they should be following the process that's laid out for changes along the entrance corridor. So I'm in agreement with Dave.
Agreed.
Thank you. We just wanted to get your initial input, make sure we were moving forward in the right direction.
Thank you. No, and I mean, spend a lot of time talking about gas station canopies. So.
Want
Thank
to be
you.
sure it has an impact, right?
Any other items?
For me, any for you?
Okay, the next ARB meeting is scheduled for August 7th, 2023. You guys know if you'll be able to attend?
I
We
believe so.
currently expect to be able to.
I will not be able to attend.
I'll check with the other members, make sure we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting. It is 1:49 PM. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.